So welcome back at Math 2 students. Our topic for today is all about improving classroom-based assessment test. So our objectives are identify terms related to improving classroom-based assessment test, analyze basic concepts, procedures, and techniques in different ways for judgmental item improvement and empirically based procedure, and examine checklist on how to assess the quality of test items in different types of tests, and compute for difficulty index accurately.
Good morning, mayong buntag, buenos dias, bon matin, blessed matuto students. Kamusta mo mga pinalangga ko? Saway pagdugay-dugay ato ng sugdan kung unsa ngay natong makatunan. Karon magadua kita atong kauban si Ate Wen Madria, Sofia Tricia Masadas, and Darlene May Morigo.
First question. It is an integral part of instruction that enhances, empowers, and celebrates students' learning. Again, it is an integral part of instruction that enhances, empowers, and celebrates students' learning.
Classroom-based assessment.
Ate Wen, can you tell us something about the classroom-based assessment test?
Before we answer that question, we must define what is assessment. Assessment refers to assessment carried out by teachers in the classroom. Now that we know what is assessment, let us answer the question, what is classroom-based assessment? Classroom-based assessment is an integral part of instruction that enhances, empowers, and celebrates students' learning. It is when the teacher assesses the students in the specific assessment that are set out in the subject or short course specification. It can be generated through written, digital, visual, or audio formats, and it may be supported in these formats through the use of an interview or presentation.
According to PALCOM 2011, there are two approaches to undertake item improvement, the judgmental approach and the empirical approach.
There are approaches in improving classroom-based tests. First is judgmental item improvement procedure, which basically makes use of human judgment in reviewing the items. Judgmental approaches to test improvement can be carried out systematically or informally. Judgmental assessment improvement strategies mainly differ according to who is applying the judgments. There are three sources of test improvement judgments to consider. A. Those applied by the teachers themselves. B. Colleagues. And C. Students. Let us have first A. The teacher's own review. The judges are the teachers themselves who know exactly what the test is for, the instructional outcomes to be assessed, and the item's level of difficulty appropriate to his or her class. It is always advisable for teachers to take a second look at the assessment tool he or she has devised for a specific purpose in order to detect shortcomings of the test or assessment task. Not only should you assess items in a test, but also test instructions. It is helpful to take a break from editing and assessing to call off and return after a period of time when it is more likely that you will notice the facets that were originally not obvious. You will improve your assessment procedures even more if you also approach test improvement systematically. You can create and or use specific review criteria to help judge your assessment. There are 5 suggestions given by Popham for the teachers to follow in executing judgment. The first one is adherence to item-specific guidelines, item writing commandments. When reviewing your own items, be sure to be familiar with the general item writing guidelines. The preceding chapter has provided specific guidelines in writing various forms of objective and non-objective constructed response types and the selected response for measuring lower level and higher level thinking skills. These guidelines should be used by the teachers to check how good the items have been planned and written, particularly in their alignment to intended instructional outcomes. Second is contribution to score-based inference. The reason we assess is to make valid score-based inference of students' knowledge and ability. The teacher examines if the expected scores generated by the test can contribute to making valid inference about the learners. The scores reveal the amount of learning achieved or show what have been mastered. Can the score infer the student's ability to move on to the next instructional level? Or rather, the scores obtained do not make any difference at all in describing or differentiating various abilities. Third, accuracy of content. Some information is accurate in the past but seems to be obsolete at present. This review should especially be considered when tests have been developed after a certain period of time. Changes that may occur due to new discoveries or developments can redefine the test content of a summative. If this happens, the items or the key to correction may have to be revisited. Fourth, absence of content gap. Review the test as a whole to ensure that information content is not overlooked. This review criterion is especially useful in strengthening the score-based inference capability of the test. If the current tool misses out on important content now prescribed by a new curriculum standard, the score will likely not give an accurate description of what is expected to be assessed. The teacher always ensure that the assessment tool matches what is currently required to be learned. This is a way to check on the content validity of the test. Fairness. Assessment items should be free from bias. The discussions on item writing guidelines always give warning on unintentionally favoring the uninformed students obtain higher scores. These are due to inadvertent grammatical clues, unattractive structures, ambiguous problems, and misses test instructions. Sometimes, unfairness can happen because of due advantage received by a particular group, like those seated in front of the classroom, or those coming from a particular socio-economic level. Getting rid of multi-biased items and writing clear instructions definitely add to the fairness of the assessment. B. Collegial judgment or peer review. Often, teachers work in teams or in professional learning communities to review assessment procedures. Teachers' peers or colleagues who are familiar with curriculum standards for the target grade level, the subject matter content, and the ability of the learners. In reviewing, provide your co-worker with a brief description of review criteria. Describe the key inferences you will base on the assessment procedure. Identify the decisions that will be influenced by your inferences about students. Collegial judgments are especially helpful to teachers who employ many performance tests or who use portfolio assessments. For this type of tests, judicial approaches are often more useful. Empirical improvement procedures are intended for more traditional items, such as those found in multiple-choice tests. Your own views are apt to be more biased in favor of your tests than a colleague's. Larger school districts may provide access to central office supervisorial personnel Get them to review your assessment procedures. Listen to what reviewers say, but be guided by your own judgments when it comes to their suggestions. Suggestions given by test experts can actually be used collegially as basis for review checklist. Number 1, do the test items follow the general and specific guidelines in writing test items specifically on A. Being aligned to objectives, B. Making the problem clear, C. Providing the effective options, D. Avoiding unintentional clues, E. Having only one best answer. Number 2, are the items free from incorrect content? Number 3, are the items free from outdated content? 4, are the test instructions clearly written for the learners to follow? 5, is the difficulty level of the test appropriate to learners' level? 6, is the test fair to all types of learners? Letter C is the student's review. It is a rich source of data and have a useful insights. After students have completed the test, give them an opportunity to provide you with feedback on the assessment as a whole and on each specific item. The process can be efficiently carried out through the use of a review questionnaire. It is better to conduct the review activity a day after taking the test so the students still remember the experience when they see a blank copy of the test. Students' judgments help you spot shortcomings in particular items such as test, direction, or timing. Students with low scores tend to blame the test.
Ms. Masadas, can you tell us the questions that we answered by the students?
These are the following questions that we answered by the students. First, are there any of the items which made you confused? Which ones were they? Number 2, did any test number has more than best answer? If so, cite them. Number 3, did any item has no correct answer? If so, pinpoint. Number 4, is there any word in the test items that made you confused? If so, which one? And lastly, number 5, were the test directions unclear? If so, which one? So now I will present to you the checklist on how to assess the quality of test items in different type of tests. Letter A, multiple choices items. It is a form of an objective assessment in which respondents are asked to select only correct answer from the choices offered as a list. Letter B, true, false items. A test consisting of a series of statements to be marked as true or false. Letter C, matching type test items. A test which requires students to match a series of stems or premises to a response or principle. Letter D, completion test items. It is a type of test in which the participants is usually required to supply a missing phrase, word, or letter in a written text. Letter E, essay test items. It is a test which assesses students' understanding of and the ability to think with the subject matter content. Letter F, problem-solving test items. A test which evaluates a student's ability to understand instructions, analyze data, and respond to complex problems or situations. Letter G, performance test items. It is an evaluation used to assess an individual's physical performance of
Noong bata pa tayo, parati tayong tinatanong, anong gusto mong maging paglaki? Ganito natin kung isilang ang pangarap sa pagsagot, sa pagpili ng destinasyon, sa pagdedeklara sa mundo, sa ito ang hinaharap na mararating ko. Hindi tayo maingat kung pumili. Wala pa noong malay na anumang piliin natin ay di magiging singdali. Hindi singdaling abutin, hindi singdaling panindigan. Walang babala ang mga pangarap na pinili natin sa ating kabataan. Walang nagsabing magawa mo mang tiisin ang init ay hindi pa rin magagarantya ang ginhawa. Walang nagsabing sugal din ang oras na nilalaan, na hindi lang pag-ibig ang kayang tumurog sa iyong puso. Walang babala ang mga pangarap na pinili natin sa ating kabataan. Hindi sa iyo sinabing minsay, kailangan gawing araw ang gabi at gabi ang araw, marating lang ito. Hindi sinabing kalakip nito ang pagtatrabaho pa rin kahit mahimbing na ang iyong mundo, na may mga taong hindi makakaunawa sa iyong hirap at magagawa pang maliitin at kutyain ka. Pero mangarap ka pa. Maging masukal na gubat man ang hardin ng buhay na sinusubukan mong buuin, patuloy kang magtanim ng panahon, ng pagsisikap, ng tibay at lakas, ng mabuting hangarin. Sumugal ka sa hinaharap, tumindig para sa buhay. Walang babala ang mga pangarap na pinili natin sa ating kabataan. Pero meron itong pangako, bumangon, magsikap, tuparin, at ilang ulit mang iparamdam ng mundo na magiging mahirap ang lahat para sa'yo. Mangarap ka pa rin.
Our second question. It is technical process that is referred to as item analysis. Again, it is technical process that is referred to as item analysis.
Empirical-based procedure.
Ms. Masalas, can you tell us about the empirical-based procedure?
We are now in number 2, empirical-based procedure. This technical process is referred to as item analysis. So when we say item analysis, it is a process which examines students' responses to individual test items in order to assess the quality of those items and of the test as a whole. It is especially valuable in improving items, which will be used again in later class. It is also an important tool to uphold test effectiveness and fairness. It's likely something educators do both consciously and unconsciously on a regular basis. Index of difficulty. The item difficulty is simply the percentage of students who answer an item correctly. Item difficulty is relevant for determining whether students have learned the concept being tested. So to measure or to get the index of difficulty, we have this formula: P is equal to the capital letter R over capital letter T, where P is the difficulty index, capital letter R stands for the total number of students answering the item right, and capital letter R for the total number of students answering the item. The item difficulty index is a common and very useful tool for statistical analysis, especially when it comes to determining the validity of test questions in an educational setting. It is often called the p-value because it is a measure of proportion. P-values are found by using the difficulty index formula, and they are reported in a range between 0.00 and 1.00.
So here are the two illustrative samples. We have item 1 and item 2. In item 1, there were 45 students in the class who responded to the item 1 and 30 answered it correctly. In our formula of difficulty index, we have P is equal to R over T. So
R is the number of students answering the item right. So in our problem, there were 30 answered it correctly over the 45 students answering the item. So if we will calculate in our calculator, the answer will be P is equal to 0.67. So in item 1, we have a p-value of 0.67. 67% get the item right while 33% missed it. So in our item 2, in the same class, only 10 responded correctly in item 2. P is equal to 10 number of students who responded correctly over the 45 students who answered the item. So if you calculate it, P is equal to 0.22. So in item 2, it has a p-value of 0.22. Out of 45, only 10 or 22% got the item right, while 35 or 78% missed it. So for the normative preference test between the two items, item 2 appears to be a much more difficult item since less than a fourth of the class was only able to respond correctly. While in a criterion reference test, the class shows much better performance in item 1 than in item 2.
As shown in the table, we have our p-value range and their corresponding interpretation. Using the formula P is equal to capital letter R over capital letter T, if the answer is in between the range of 0.00 and 0.20, it means that the item is very difficult or kinalisuran no? So between the range of 0.21 and 0.40, it means difficult item. Lisod. Lisod nga item pero mas lisod yun tong nauna nga p-value range kay very difficult man na item. And then we have the p-value range of 0.41 to 0.60. It means that our item is moderately difficult. So kung naay very difficult and difficult item, naasay moderately difficult item or dili kaayo lisod na item. Next, we can interpret an easy item if we are in the range between 0.61 to 0.80. And lastly, if our p-value range is 0.81 and above, it means that our item is very easy or kinasayunan na item.
Thank you again, Ms. Masadas. Our last question. It is refers to the ability of an item to differentiate among students on the basis of how well they know the material being tested. Again, it is the ability of an item to differentiate among students on the basis of how they will know the material being tested.
Of discrimination.
Ms. Morigo, can you tell us what is index of discrimination?
Now let's proceed to the index of discrimination. Index of discrimination is a measure of the extent to which a test item discriminate or differentiate between students who do well in the overall test and to those students who did not do well on the overall test. Or let us say that this is between the more knowledgeable and less knowledgeable learners. Item discrimination refers to the ability of an item to differentiate among students on the basis of how well they know the material being tested. So the index discrimination is the difference between the percent of the correct responses of the upper group and the percent of the correct responses in the lower group. So, nga, para asa man ang kanang index discrimination or unsa man ang iyahang purpose. So, ang index discrimination kay It provides an indication of the ability of the group of students who select each option in terms of how they perform as a group on the examination overall.
So there are three natures of the difference, however, can take different directions. First is positively discriminating item. Proportion of high-scoring group is greater than that the low-scoring group, which means that ang high-scoring group is mas dako kaysa sa low-scoring group. That is for the positively discriminating item. While in the negatively discriminating item is a proportion of high-scoring group is less than that the low-scoring group, which means kung ang high-scoring group niya is mas gamay kaysa sa low-scoring group, that is the negatively discriminating item. And the third is not discriminating. The proportion of high-scoring group is equal to that of low-scoring group. If ang high-scoring group o ang low-scoring group is equal, that is not discriminating.
Yeah, unsaon man nato pag-calculate sa discrimination index, or how can we calculate the discrimination index? First, you need to determine the discrimination index by subtracting the number of students in the lower group who got the item correct from the number of students in the upper group who got the item correct. Then divide by the students in each group in case they are 5 or 10 each group. Then formula. Ang pagkuha niya is na formula. So ang formula is D is equal to RU divided by TU minus R1 divided by T1, where ang D is item discrimination, then ang RU is the number of upper group getting the correct item, o ang RU is o pila ka buok ang nakakuha sa correct answer sa upper group. Then ang TU is the number of the upper group, o pila sila ka buok sa upper group. Then ang R1 is the number of lower group getting the item correct, o pila sad ang nakakuha o correct na answer sa lower group. Then ang T1 is the number of lower group, o pila ang naa sa lower group, o 5 ba sila or 4 ba sila. So now let's proceed to the index of discrimination, D value.
So there is another calculation that can bring about the same result as Kubizin and Gorich 2010, which is D is the RU minus RL over all T, where RU is the number of upper group getting the item correct, while RL is the number of lower group getting the item correct over all the T, which is the number of either group. So the formula for index discrimination can also be given as Popham 2011, which is D is equal to PU minus PL, where PU is the p-value for the upper group, which is RU over TU, while PL is the p-value for lower group, RL over TL. To obtain the proportions of the upper and lower groups corresponding to the item correctly, the teacher follows these steps. First, score the test papers using a K correction to obtain the total scores of the students. Maximum score is the total number of objective items. Second, order the test papers from highest to lowest. Kasagaran ilahang i-order ang paper bitaw sa mga estudyante from highest to lowest kung kinsa kinatak-ag score hangtod sa kinagamyang score. Next is split the test papers into halves, high groups and low groups. For a class of 50 or less students, do a 50-50 split. Take upper half as the high group and the lower half as the low group. For a big group of 100 or so, take the upper 25 minus 27% and the lower 25 minus 27%.
Maintain equal numbers of test papers for upper and lower groups. Then, obtain the p-value for the upper group and p-value for the lower group. So the p upper group is equal to RU over the TH, and p of the lower group is RL over TL. Then get the discrimination index by getting the difference between the p values. Items with negative discrimination indices, although significantly high, are subject right away to revision if not deletion. With multiple choice items, negative D is a forensic evidence of errors in item writing. It suggests the ability of wrong K, unclear problem in the stem, ambiguous distractors, and unplausible K option.
Nakita man nato no nga na ay D-value range nga na-assign interpretation sa kilid. So, sa matag percentage, there is an interpretation, whether it's good or poor ba siya. Then, if ang D-value range kay 40% and above, its interpretation is very good item. Very good kay siya nga kanang ato nga number ng kay daghan ang nakakuha sa correct nga answer. Then if 30 to 39% ang nakakuha or ang D value range nato, the iyang interpretation kay reasonably a good item. So but posible nga masubject to improvement. Then if 20 to 29%, the interpretation with kay marginal item, usually needing improvement yun siya. Then if 19 below, 19 to 0, mas below pa yun, 19 below ang D value na to, ang ihang interpretation kay poor item. So ani is to be rejected or improved by revision na ni siya kay gamay na kaayo ang nakakuha sa right nga answer. So now, karon ato na pong hisgutan ang destructivist analysis. So unsa ang destructivist analysis? Destructivist analysis is an analysis of the distribution of responses across the destructors in another empirical procedure which used to discover areas for item improvement. It is used as follow-up especially when the difficulty index and the discrimination index of the items seem to be suggest to be candidate of revision. Magamit ni siya og ang ato ang difficulty index og ang discrimination index kay nangani bitaw sa kandidato siya sa pag ng otro revision. Then ato ani na puta sa sensitivity to instruction index.
As what you can see in the table 3, the distractor analysis table, where in the first column, item is equal to n over 40, difficulty index, discrimination index, then group, then the alternatives A, B, C, and D, and you can evaluate if you need to omit the item or not. We can answer the following questions. What kind of items do you see based on their D? What does their respective D indicate? Cite the data supporting this. Then which of the two items is more discriminating? Why? Which items need to be revised? With these following questions, we can decide where item need to omit or we need to revise.
So, ang sensitivity to instruction index, inferring how sensitive an item has been to instruction, denotes a change in the performance of students a result of instruction. So, this refers to the extent to which the questions on a task measure to the material or content covered in the curriculum.
So, consider an item where in a class of 40, 80% answered it correctly in the post test. while only 10% did it in the pre-test. So its p-value for the post-test is 0.80, while the pre-test is 0.10. Thus, E sub y is equal to 0.70 following this calculation. So the sensitivity of induction is equal to the p, where is the post-test, minus the p, where is the pre-test. So Si is equal to the p-value of the post-test, which is 0.80, minus the value of p in the pre-test, which is 0.10. So if we calculate, the sensitivity to instruction is equal to 0.70.